So I really, felt so much better when family joined after 6 months, and I could get some downtime. Otherwise, you're perpetually in that motion, and that kind of can, get you very exhausted very quickly. So that would be one suggestion I'll give to people, that whatever be your support system, lean on that when you go through these sort of challenging phases, because that does help become resilient and bounce back from some setbacks that you will get.
Join me, Jeremy Swick, on Into the Unknown, a podcast that delves into the personal journeys, stories, and experiences of individuals across diverse professions. As a historian by trade, I firmly believe that our personal histories shape our present and offer valuable insights into our paths ahead. With that being said, let's get into it. On this episode of Into the Unknown, I am joined with a very special guest, Sid Banerjee. How are you doing today, Sid?
Excellent. Cheerful.
I love to hear it. I really appreciate you taking the time to talk with me today.
Pleasure.
So, I always like to kick off the show and kind of talk about networking because you really never know how you might get connected with people. How are we connected?
So I think this is the way mostly I have had my relationships. People where someone has reached out to me, or my marketing team would talk to people, and then suddenly they would see there's a nice connect, and they will ask me that should we just get this kind of connection going. And for me, every conversation is meaningful. Every person in our life, when they walk in, it's meant to do something, and therefore I look forward to every good interaction, which has held me in good stead in my life. So, very excited to be talking to Jeremy, and let's believe that this is not the first time and the last time we'll be talking.
Sid, I couldn't agree more. And I think you hit on a very important point. Every interaction with people is important, whether we see it in the exact moment, and maybe it's not on a magnificent mountaintop scale, but whatever we talk about is always, I think, insightful. And I always hope it leaves a good conversation, a good thought provoking conversation.
Totally, totally.
So, Sid, I want to know a little bit more about you, that origin story, comic book issue number one. Who's Sid?
Sid is a person who's loves to do everything with people. Uh, I like to build things. I like to make impact. I like to grow things. But in the process, I love to co create. I'm not someone who wants to just go out and do things on his own. Um, and I enjoy being with people who are intellectually stimulating, who makes me learn every day, and where we learn from each other as well. So that's a lot of Sid, and as a result of which, whether it's my corporate journey, whether it's my family, whether it's my theater journey, everywhere I have worked with, and I've chosen areas I think where I can work with a lot of people around me, and that gives me a lot of energy, and that also perpetually makes me grow as an individual.
Sid, you mentioned that spirit of collaboration. Was that something you grew up with? Were you always that kid running around trying to make friends or meet people, or how did that unfold?
You see, I was raised in India where we're mostly part of a joint family. And so I would have my twin sisters, I have cousins who were also in the same house, uncle, aunt. So, it was never about I, me, myself in that growing up days. It was about working with uh, people, looking at their needs as much as my needs, being a support system, and equally other people supporting me. So, maybe that kind of defined my childhood, defined my personality, and that has just continued. And, later in my life, of course, I saw that play a much stronger value. And the one team game I of course used to play, and I still play tennis, but one of the other game that I've played all my life is, as all Indians would do, is cricket. And it was a team game, and I learned so much from everybody around me, uh, you know contributing, and equally understanding that it is finally a team game in life. It's not about one individual doing great and then yet your team losing.
Sid, I appreciate you said that. I think there's so many correlations to sports and life. Well, I've never played cricket. I've played rugby the last 16 years. And as you know, in cricket, you need that teamwork to actually win and to actually, get to your team's goal. So it's never about an individual's effort. They can be the best player on the field, but if they can't get along with their team, then a lot of times that success is short lived.
Totally, absolutely.
So take me on the journey a little bit more. You mentioned that you grew up in India, and now, if I'm not mistaken, you're in the United States, correct?
That is correct. I live in New York City.
How did that journey happen? How did that journey unfold?
So I grew up in a city called Calcutta, which is quite well known as a city of joy. Although by the time I was born, it was taken over by um, the Marxist government, and which led to a lot of unemployment and industries closing down, and obviously opportunities from work standpoint came down. Consequent to which, after doing my education, I left that city, but I worked with other parts of India, and I've been mostly on the road since then. Um, I have consciously stayed away from um, moving into an international country permanently. So, in my multinational jobs with large banks, I've always led teams globally, but did not change my base from India. So, I would either be in another city in the north, like Delhi, or south in Bangalore, but I never really left India till 3 years back, when I took on the role of leading this analytics firm, which was a mid sized firm and which needed to get that Philip to really push a lot of the journey to increase the enterprise value. And we could not do it just by being at the place of delivery, but we had to be at a place where our clients are and where our potential investors will be. And I also realized that, in if you have to run a company of this size and stature, the client gets a lot of confidence if they know that the CEO of the firm is based in their own time zone, in their own location, and they're a call away. So that kind of drove me to move. So it was a quite a ambitious move at that stage. I was mid 50s almost when I did this move, and today I'm happy to say that it all worked out very well. But there was some trepidation at that point of time to do take this challenge, but it all worked out great, and this has been a wonderful experience in my life.
Sid, you mentioned that trepidation, and I think that's completely understandable. As you mentioned, you were in your mid 50s, and you're moving really across the world at that point. And as you had mentioned before, you hadn't really moved outside of India. What was the experience like? As you mentioned, you grew up with a lot of family intertwined, and I assume not everyone moved to New York City with you.
No, no one actually moved. In fact, initially, even my wife didn't move because she was working with Accenture and she had to find the right opening to move to the New York City, which happened about 6 months after I moved. So yeah, learning a lot of life skills. That was the first thing that I saw when I moved to this country. The second was, of course, working through the usual suspects, like from social security to driving license to getting your utilities stuff fixed, and all this while you're running a company which is, I mean, reasonably smaller size. It's not like my erstwhile organizations like a Deutsche or a Goldman, which were a lot of things, systems took care. Here, almost everything one had to do from soup to nuts. So, um, yeah, it was, now when I reflect back, it was a lot of hard work and 24 by 7 work. But, feels good to say that we have waded through all of that and come out quite triumphant.
Sid, it's one of those experiences I think that really it's the idea that iron sharpens iron. I think that makes you stronger in those experiences. And of course, on the business side, you mentioned that it's great. Shareholders and people invest in the company feel confident when their leader, where their CEO is in the same time zone, in the same city, and really is just a phone call away. Granted, you can do that in India as well. But I think from that personal side, moving across the world, moving without friends or family is one of those things that I really think it really tests that mental fortitude.
Indeed, indeed. Um, I also think, Jeremy, that one of the big support system you have is your family. And in moments like this, when you're moving to a new country, facing a lot of adversity and challenges, and equally on the business side, right, which is at a stage when not every client is happy, not every new business you want to scout for are going to get converted. So it is very important to have some kind of a support system and switch off mechanism when you're back at home to be able to do that. So I really, felt so much better when family joined after 6 months, and I could get some downtime. Otherwise, you're perpetually in that motion, and that kind of can, get you very exhausted very quickly. So that would be one suggestion give to people, that whatever be your support system, lean on that when you go through these sort of challenging phases, because that does help become resilient and bounce back from some setbacks that you will get.
Sid, I couldn't agree more. I think it's so important because, as you mentioned, when you moved, you were by yourself. You didn't have that support system, at least immediately present, which means a lot of times if you're entrepreneurial or you're business focused, that just means we work a little bit longer because there's no one saying, hey, come watch TV with me. Hey, let's go for a walk. Hey, let's go out to dinner. I'm like, let me just be in that mode. And I think it really is helpful to have people around you that care about you to help you shut it off, even though in business maybe it feels like the opposite of what we should do, but I think you've been experienced long enough to know that having those off moments is definitely crucial in, I think, sustaining success.
Yeah, you come back more charged, right? And that is important. And very interestingly, Jeremy, a trivia is that when I was in India, um, I mean, I have a reasonably nuclear family now, one son, one wife, and wife was in a city in Bangalore. I was working in a city called Pune. My son was working in New York. So suddenly, when we moved here, all three of us were within a range of 1 mile radius, and we were saying, "Oh, this is great. This is not what we were expecting." So, moving to a different country actually paved the way for us to be together as a family, which was great.
That really is. On everyone's journey, you make a decision not really knowing the outcome. Can you give me a time where you just went for it?
So maybe call it the recency factor, or call it one of a bigger accomplishment. But this really happened 3 years back when I took on the mantle of this company, SG Analytics. I moved into this firm more on the board and with a minority investment, thinking that, as this company will see the light of the day with an equity event, we'll all make some good fortune. But within 3 months of doing that and realizing where the company is and what our ambition is, we had to look for a CEO. And it was I who had to raise my hand and take on that role. And the original founder became the chairman. So since then, it has been last 3.5 years of, relentless work. And it was completely an uncharted area. And I'll tell you on a couple of aspects why it was completely uncharted. One, because it dealt with research, technology, analytics, none of which I have done extensively in my life. I've been a user mostly and less of a creator in that space. Secondly, I have never really worked of a company of this size. Most of the organizations I work for are more like Fortune 100 companies, not even Fortune 500. So therefore, the challenges of a smaller company are very different, and I realized as I got in. And third, what none of us were expecting was this huge wave of LLM and Gen AI that came into the play, which changed the whole, canvas. And I'll tell you in what aspects. One, clients had very high expectation, but they did not know what they really wanted, right? Everybody from their board to their uncle and aunt told them they must use Gen AI and LLM, but where and how and what success they don't know. So everybody was making a pitch. So we were just another company making a pitch. So we had to find out what distinction will we bring. Our investors decided to put all the dry powder away because they said, what you don't know is what you don't know. I don't want to invest in a space which after 3 years may become irrelevant. So, should I really put in my money there? No. So that was the other challenge of a complete unknown that the whole world was going through, and we also went through it. So given all of this, it really was a big shift from where we were and where I was individually to come into this role. And as they say, that those are also the most exciting times when every day you're trying to figure out how to get there. And mind you, we were doing all of this without compromising on our growth story and without compromising on our margin story, because those are the two indicators that every potential investor looks at you, and those are the things that drives the enterprise value. So we couldn't afford to lose them. So you can imagine it's like so counterproductive. You have to grow, but you can't drop margins, and you still want to change the shape of the business because you have to tilt more towards Gen AI and LLM, and bring in that sort of elements into your offerings. So it was quite an interesting and exciting unknown journey in the last at least 2 years.
Sid, I can only imagine. I want to know what made you step up to be willing to move to CEO. It's one thing to be on the board, you kind of have this expectation, but it's another thing to raise your hand and say, I'm up for this challenge.
Many days later, I've thought that I must be smoking something that day. But uh, I will be honest with you, Jeremy. Probably 70% of that was a conscious effort. 30% just happened, right? And this is where destiny plays a role. Um, and probably I also took it because I wasn't conscious of what all it entailed at that point of time. Partly, I took it because that was the need of the hour from the organization standpoint, and having signed up for something, I didn't want the organization not to see its full potential. And finally, I would say it was also a little bit of um, personal drive and ambition to say that, look, I want to have a really good swan song, maybe a combination of factors.
Sid, I appreciate that answer. Title of the podcast, Into the Unknown. What are you working on now? Tell me a little bit more about the business, and if people want to learn more about what you're doing, how can they find you online?
So we are on a very interesting journey now, Jeremy, where we have come up with a belief that with the democratization of technology, the winner going forward will not be that client who has access to the best technology, but that client who knows how to operationalize AI, how to bring in artificial intelligence in their day-to-day work, and um, not just think that either technology will solve everything or people will solve everything, because we believe the answer is in the middle. Now, in order to do that, we say AI has to be the center of everything, but do not think it is a silver bullet. So, with that in mind, we also are very aware that 70% of the AI that people will deploy will fail because of the poor adoption. And that's where actually my next thing is, just to get my clients to think of how do you operationalize the AI by getting a combination of people and technology and transforming operations over a period of time, and not just think it's a one time effort of putting the tools and then seeing everything will change. No, it will not. It will face some resistance, it will have to undergo changes, but you have to be at it, and over time you will get significant value, not just on cost, but also on uplift on revenue. So that's what we're looking at. I am obviously available at sid.banerjee at sganalytics.com. And, my website is sganalytics.com.
Well, Sid, I want to say thank you again for taking the time to talk with me. It was insightful to learn a little bit more about your story, how your company is utilizing AI, because sometimes I think a lot of people just read headlines and they think, "Hey, I need AI in my business, in my life," but don't often really know how to utilize it, or there's that fear that it's going to take over the world. And I think sometimes businesses like yours do a great job in really showing how they can work together.
Totally, Jeremy. It was wonderful talking to you and enjoyed the conversation. And I think I go back to what I said at the outset. This is a relationship for keeps. So we'll keep talking, Jeremy.
We'll talk soon.
Thank you.
That was another fun episode of Into the Unknown. I truly appreciate you taking the time to listen. And if it provides you any value or entertainment, I would love if you shared it with others, liked, subscribed, and really just help the podcast grow. Again, tell a friend, tell a foe, just anyone who might enjoy hearing some stories of people's own journeys and what got them to where they are today. Till next time.